Hello, welcome to Biology, the scientific study of life. Biogenic amines. Biogenic amines are neurotransmitters derived from amino acids. One group known as catecholamines consists of neurotransmitters produced from the amino acid tyrosine. This group includes epinephrine and norepinephrine, which also function as hormones, and a closely related compound called dopamine. Another biogenic amine, serotonin, is synthesized from the amino acid tryptophan. The biogenic amines are often involved in indirect synaptic transmission, most commonly in the CNS. However, norepinephrine also functions in a branch of the PNS called the autonomic nervous system. Dopamine and serotonin are released at many sites in the brain and affect sleep, mood, attention, and learning. Imbalances of these neurotransmitters are associated with several disorders. For example, the degenerative illness Parkinson's disease is associated with a lack of dopamine in the brain. Some psychoactive drugs, including LSD and mescaline, apparently produce their hallucinatory effects by binding to brain receptors for serotonin and dopamine. Depression is often treated with drugs that increase the brain concentrations of biogenic amines such as norepinephrine or serotonin Prozac. Or, for instance, enhances the effect of serotonin by inhibiting its uptake after release. Amino acids and peptides. 4 amino acids are known to function as neurotransmitters in the CNS. Gamma aminobutyric acid, GAPA, glycine, glutamate, and aspartate, GABA, believed to be the neurotransmitter at most inhibitory synthesis in the brain, produces IBCB by increasing the permeability of the postsynaptic membrane to Cl-. Several neuropeptides, relatively short chains of amino acids, serve as neurotransmitters. Most neurons release one or more neuropeptides as well as non-peptide neurotransmitter. Many peptides are produced by post-translational modification of much larger protein precursors. For example, cleavage of the 267 amino acid precursor bryonkaphyllin used for copies of the pentapeptide methinkaphyllin, as well as other peptides in common with the biogenic amines. Neuropeptides often operate via signal transduction pathways. The neuropeptide substance B is a key excitatory neurotransmitter that mediates our perception of pain, while other neuropeptides called endorphins function as natural analgesics, decreasing pain perception. Certain science researchers or scientists such as Candace Peart and Solomon Sender of Johns Hopkins University discovered endorphins in the 1970 when they found specific receptors for the opiates, morphine, and heroin on brain neurons. Further research showed that opiates bind to these receptors by mimicking endorphins, which are produced in the brain during times of physical or emotional stress, such as childbirth. In addition to relieving pain, endorphins also decrease urine output by stimulating ADH secretion, depress respiration, produce euphoria, and have other emotional effects. An endorphin released from the anterior pituitary gland as a hormone also affects specific regions of the brain, providing an example of the overlap between endocrine and nervous system control. Gases. In common with many other types of cells, some neurons of vertebrate P and S and C and S release dissolved gases, notably nitric oxide NO and carbon monoxide CO, as local regulators, for example during sexual arousal of a human male. Certain neurons release NO into the erectile tissue of the penis. In response, smooth muscle cells in the blood vessel walls of the erectile tissue relax, which causes the blood vessels to dilate and fill the spongy erectile tissue with the blood, producing an erection. The male impotence drug Viagra increases the ability to achieve and maintain an erection by inhibiting an enzyme that slows the muscle relaxing effects of NO. Carbon monoxide is synthesized by the enzyme hemioxygenase, one form of which is localized to certain populations of neurons in the brain, and the PNS in the brain CO regulates the release of hypothalamic hormones. In the PNS, it acts as an inhibitory neurotransmitter that hyperpolarizes intestinal smooth muscle cells. Unlike typical neurotransmitters, NO and CO are not destroyed in cytoplasmic vessels. Cells synthesize them on demand. These substances diffuse into neighboring target cells, produce a change, and are broken down all within a few seconds. In many of its targets, including smooth muscle cells, NO works like many hormone-stimulating a membrane-bound enzyme to synthesize a second messenger that directly affects cellular metabolism. Let's talk about the vertebrate nervous system is regionally specialized. In all vertebrates, the nerve system shows specialization and distinct CNS and PNS components. The brain provides the integrative power that underlies the complex behavior of vertebrates. The spinal cord, which runs lengthwise inside the vertebral column spine, which means integrate simple responses to certain kinds of stimuli, such as the knee-jerk reflex, and conveys information to and from the brain. Unlike ventral nerve cord of many invertebrates, the vertebrate spinal cord runs along the dorsal side of the body and does not contain segmental ganglia. However, there are segment ganglia just outside the spinal cord, and the arrangement of neurons within the spinal cord clearly shows an underlying segmental organization. The vertebrate CNS is derived from the dorsal embryonic nerve cord, which is hollow, one of the phylogenetic hallmarks of chordata in the adult. This feature persists as the narrow central canal of the spinal cord and the four ventricles of the brain. Both the central canal and the ventricles are filled with cerebrospinal fluid. Cerebrospinal fluid, which is formed in the brain by filtration of the blood. Cerebrospinal fluid, which is formed in the brain by filtration of the blood. The cerebrospinal fluid circulates slowly through the central canal and the ventricles, and then drains into the veins, assisting in the supply of nutrients and hormones to different parts of the brain and in the removal of wastes. In mammals, the cerebrospinal fluid also cushions the brain and spinal cord by circulating between two of the meninges layers connective tissue that surround the CNS. Axons within the CNS are often found in well-defined bundles or tracts whose myelin shifts give them a whitish appearance in coarse sections of the brain and spinal cord. This white matter is clearly distinguishable from gray matter, which consists mainly dendrites, unmyelinated axons, and neuron cells, cell bodies. Notice that. The peripheral nervous system. The PNS transmits information into to and from the CNS and plays a large role in regulating a vertebrate's movement and internal environment. Structurally, the vertebrate PNS consists of left-right pair of cranial and spinal nerves and their associated ganglia. The cranial nervous originates in the brain and terminates mostly in origin. Notice that. Mostly in organs of the head and upper body. The spinal nerves originate in the spinal cord and extend to parts of the body below the head. Mammals have 12 pairs of cranial nerves and 13 pairs of spinal nerves. Most of the cranial nerves and all of the spinal nerves contain axons of both sensory and motor neurons. A few of the cranial nerves, the olfactory and optic nerves, for example, are sensory only. The PNS can be divided into two functional components, the somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. The somatic nervous system carries signals to and from skeletal muscles, mainly in response to external stimuli. It is often considered voluntary because it is subject to conscious control, but much skeletal muscle activity is actually controlled by reflexes mediated by the spinal cord or a part of the brain called the brainstem. The autonomic nervous system regulates the internal environment by controlling smooth and cardiac muscles and the organs of the digestive, cardiovascular, excretory, and endocrine systems. This control is generally in voluntary three divisions. Sympathetic, parasympathetic, and enteric. Together make up the autonomic nervous system. Compares the organization and actions of the sympathetic and parasympathetic divisions. Activation of the sympathetic division. This figure, notice that. This is as comparison. Division corresponds to arousal and energy generation, the fight or flight response. For example, the heart beats faster, the liver converts glycogen to glucose,